Hello and welcome to the Game Theory Podcast. I'm your host, Sam Vicini. Today, Bryce Simon is in the building. I pointed the wrong direction again on the video. If you're watching on YouTube, go subscribe to the YouTube channel, by the way. We get more and more viewers every single time we do one of these. It's fantastic. I appreciate everybody that's here. I appreciate everyone that comes and joins us every time we record one of these. We're talking rookies today. We did a quarter season, something like that. A month of the season in rookie review, right at the midway mark of November, something like that, if I remember correctly, Bryce.
Yeah.
We're about halfway through the season. There are teams that have played 39 games at this point. There are teams that have only played like 36, 35 even, if I remember correctly. But we're closing in on that halfway point, and we have to do awards next week. We have to talk draft at some point. Like there's a number of things that we have to do still on this podcast. So I thought do rookies a little bit earlier, right before that midseason mark. So we're going to talk a lot about Chet Holmgren, Victor Wembanyama, Jaime Jaquez. Obviously, we're going to talk a little bit about Cam Whitmore because what he's doing is super, super fun for the Houston Rockets. And we'll talk about Brandon Miller and Scoot and all those other guys. We're definitely going to spend, I would say, a big portion of the time on Chet, Victor, and Jaquez because they are the three guys that are genuine, it feels like, difference makers within the NBA right now. Bryce, what's going on, buddy?
What's up, Sam? Yeah, it was interesting as I was doing this. I'm looking at Jaquez's stuff and I'm like, I'm not sure there's an argument for anybody else number 3. Like it's Chet and Wemby, yeah. And I think that's heated up a little bit more than the last time we did this. I'm interested to see where you stand on this because I think we both were kind of overwhelmingly Chet the last conversation. And I feel like for me, it's gotten closer at least. But then it was like, dang, I think Jaime really has third secured right now, number 3 spot. So yeah, I'm excited to talk rookies. Maybe we'll talk some Pistons rookies here. We'll talk the Twins, some other guys, maybe even an undrafted rookie and Craig Porter Jr., who's done really well in Cleveland. And I got all my draft stuff ready to go whenever we get there. I'm waiting in the dark. I'm doing my work in the dark. I got my big board, my notes, so I'm gonna be ready whenever the time comes.
But first, we're going to talk about one thing here at the top. The NBA is going forward with its idea to do a 2-night NBA draft. According to Adrian Wojnarowski, the NBA is finalizing plans to turn the 2024 NBA draft into a 2-night event in Brooklyn, sources tell ESPN. The draft would be split into first and second round on successive nights, June 26th and 27th. I think this is silly, as I've said multiple times at this point. I don't think teams can act like they care about the second round. They can pretend to think that they really genuinely think these picks matter, but they just don't. Like for teams that are involved in this, they like the picks, they like being able to get talent and everything. They just are not all that valuable. And the idea behind this, according to Woj, if I remember correctly, it was let's see here.
More trades and more time to value these picks, or they felt like it was too rushed. It wasn't that kind of the terminology?
Yeah. Among the reasons for the expansion of the event, programming of TV rights for the partners. Totally get that. That makes a lot of sense. The NBA and teams are hopeful that the hours between Wednesday night's first round and Thursday night's second round will give teams more time to make trades and plan out strategies for the second night. This is why when this original idea happened, right? My idea was to split it from the lottery, have the lottery in the first night, and then do 15 onward in the second night. That to me seems like a better strategy in order to facilitate trades. There will probably be trades that happen at 31, 32, 33, 34, whatever. I do buy that. But I just there are trades every year in the second round.
Yeah.
Teams are trying to move in, move out, everything like that. That's normal. I don't think necessarily that moving just the second round to the second night is going to facilitate more. And frankly, I don't know that fans care enough about the second round for this to be as big of a hit, like TV wise for the partners, is what people think. And this comes from like you and I, we love the draft. Like
Yeah.
my job is literally the NBA draft. I scout these guides. I write a freaking 100,000 word draft guide every year. Like I love the draft. I just am very skeptical that people will care about this.
So what I'm worried about a little bit is, don't you think that second night is just going to turn into more more pushing the first round picks? Like I don't know that it's gonna. Are they? I guess I'm interested to see, do they keep the focus on the second round? Because to me, it's
Yeah.
almost just time for the TV stations, whatever the broadcast, to organize. Okay, how are we going to highlight Alex Sarr? Can we get him in an interview? Can we get him more of a backstory? Those things. And then now the second round picks give even less of the attention than what they're
Yeah.
getting anyway.
Well, it's that. And I wonder, like, are you going to extend out the clock on these second round picks as well now because you want to make this a little bit more of an event? Do you make it like 5 minutes now instead of
Yeah.
what I think is 2 minutes, if I remember correctly? Maybe you do like 7 minutes for the first round picks, 5 minutes for the second round picks, something like that. Like, I'm in favor of it. It sounds nice and fine and everything. Again, like I'm with you. Like I worry, like, is it just going to be like, hey, Alex Sarr goes number one. Let's, talk to Alex Sarr for 5 minutes kind of thing. And then it's, still the Nikola Jokic getting picked during the Taco Bell commercial, like situation. Right. I don't know. I'm not sitting here. Like I'm intrigued to see how it goes. I think that it could have been better if they had split the lottery off as opposed to the first and second round.
And I'll be honest, I haven't talked to enough agents and teams to know their feeling on this. Like, I'm really interested to get the feedback of, yeah, we don't need this, or we already
Yeah.
have this. We already have, I would assume that they already have plans A, B, C, and D planned out. So if this guy gets picked and then they're left with this guy on the board, they've already figured out a lot of those things. Maybe not. Maybe it's more chaotic than what I'm giving it credit for. I just feel like a lot of those second round picks, you've pinpointed how many
Oh,
ever guys
the second round? The
yeah.
second round is like fucking chaos in NBA front offices.
So do you
It's a
do
total
you think
madhouse.
they will appreciate this then, in terms of, okay, we got through the first round, some of the surprises are gone. If we increase the time from 2 to 5 minutes, maybe they would feel a little bit better about those selections, a little more confident, a little more resolute?
Yes, I think they will
Okay.
feel better about it to like be able to regroup, just get things back together, relax. But like again, I think they would feel better about it if the clock was extended even to 4 minutes or something like that, as
But
opposed
still,
to 2 minutes
it's more about the
for each
time.
pick.
It doesn't necessarily need to be the next day. Like, I even wonder from an agent's perspective, like, okay, this team took so and so in the first round. Now, where does my guy fit with teams in the second
Well,
round? Can I get on the phone with those guys now?
for sure. And what'll happen now is instead of teams furiously calling like undrafted free agents before the draft ends, right? Saying like, hey, if your guy goes unpicked, we're here. We love your guy. We'd love to sign him to a two-way exhibit 10, et cetera, right? That'll happen the night before now, I think, where it'll be like, hey, I'm trying to think of hey, Cam Spencer, like somebody like I like Cam
Sure.
Spencer a decent
Yeah,
amount.
he
I
can
think
really
he
shoot it.
should like,
Yeah.
be a, two-way exhibit 10, somebody like that, right?
He's a G League player
Hey,
for sure.
yeah. Hey, Cam Spencer, like we'd love to have you. We're calling you because like we think, let us know. Let us know if Cam goes undrafted to the agent, everything like that. And we'll get that done. So I think you're gonna see like a absolute like waterfall of undrafted guys get signed like in the minutes after the draft. Like, do you know how like it used to be with free agents where at 12:01 p.m. or 12:01 a.m. they would sign like,
The
oh yeah,
contract details are
seven.
worked out, and they have the player options, and all of that
Right.
was negotiated in 60 seconds, Sam.
Exactly. Right. 7 seconds. That's all you needed to nail down a deal, right? And nail down terms. I think it'll be like that at the end of the draft, where like you get like 30 guys that are like done immediately.
Here's what I would say. As a draft sicko, I want to increase the time in the second round because I want these second round picks to get highlighted. I would like to see those
Yeah.
guys get talked about. And at the end of the day, I don't say casual fan and with a negative connotation like it gets sometimes. The casual NBA fan is only watching the first round anyway, or their team's first round pick, or to your point, as the chat likes, maybe even just the lottery. But real NBA and NBA draft fans that are really into this stuff, I think they want to see some of these second round picks highlighted and talked about.
I'm with that. I'm definitely 100% for that. Could not be more for that. Do the partners have the people that can do that? It's a real question, right? Like, because Mike is gone now. Like, Mike Schmitz works for Portland now. Are you going to put Gavoni on the desk? Like, John is smart. Like, I think John is totally capable of doing that. Like, do you put Jeremy Woo on the desk? Like, Jeremy is smart. Jeremy can like do things like Jeremy can break down prospects, right? Like things like that for ESPN. Like, how do you handle it? Because like, I feel like when we start getting into the internationals, the mid-second round names, the NBA guys that they tend to have on the desk, it's not as descriptive, let's go with, or of what these guys are as players. And look, those guys are busy. Like, I'm not like shitting on them. Like, I'm saying though that like they are asked to do draft, and it is an additional thing that is hard to just like parachute into after doing NBA all year.
So I wonder what the NFL does. I know it changes from round to round, like each day. I think it changes some of the people that are on there. Maybe not like, so maybe the first round through the lottery, you get these guys that are going to be able to talk about Stephon Castle and Jacoby Walter and even the G League Ignite guys and all of that. And then from there, you bring on real NBA draft people, that can really get into the weeds on these second round prospects that can talk about those guys. I think that would work. I like this a lot more because I don't want it just to be a pick. They say the name and they give the generic, this guy can shoot the ball a little bit, right? Like if Peyton Sandford got drafted in the second round, how much are most of those guys going to be able to talk about? Where I think some people that really get into it could really break down his game in terms of, okay, this is the type of three-point shooter he is. This is the context to Iowa. This is what he is defensively. Yeah. This is what he is on the boards. This is how he's improved, those type of things.
I think that the big thing for me is like, look, I want to give ESPN a chance to like do this well and everything like that. I just hope that the production folks at ESPN understand like that they need to bring in people that can do this. And look, like I'm here in Australia. I'm not suggesting myself by any stretch of the imagination. Don't really want to do it. We'll be right here breaking it down. It's more of this is more my vibe. I would rather be here off the set or anything. But I think it would make a lot of sense to make sure that you have very smart people that can actually do this consistently.
Well, and what you do is, even if you had to have a few and you called them in when a player is drafted and say, okay, you have these 15 guys. If one of your guys goes in the second round, you're coming in. I don't know how that would work via video and stuff. Like, I don't know broadcast stuff enough, but you know what I mean? Like, you have 5 guys on call. Yeah. Each has 15 guys. If their guy gets picked, they're coming up and they're going to be able to talk through him for at least a few minutes, right? And then everybody else can take over in terms of, okay, this is what this kid does. This is how he fits with the team. If they're a little more NBA centric, they can take that breakdown and talk about how it fits the team.
Yeah. I'm fascinated to see what ESPN does with this because it could go well. YouTube user asks, did the outline say, talk about 2-day draft for 15 minutes or are we getting a long episode? Look, this is probably going to be like an hour and a half episode.
It wasn't on the outline. Listen, the first 2 words on the outline are Chet Holmgren. Bold, underline, in the middle, 15 point. This conversation was not on the outline. No. And the outline is still like 13 pages.
To be fair, I texted this to Bryce ahead of time. We knew we were going to talk about it.
I'm never blindsided by anything we bring up. It's just, listen, we know it's an understanding. We've done it long enough now, even though it hasn't been that long. We know how it's going to go.
Yeah.
It's all good.
We know what's going to happen here. Okay. Let's, Wyatt Darby says, give me 2 days of letting Kendrick Perkins cook about players he's never heard of. Honestly, would watch. Like, absolutely would watch. It would be amazing.
It's my biggest fear. So this is why the outlines are so long, is because I am terrified for you to ask me something that I'm not prepared to talk about. And quite honestly, I feel like I work too hard not to have it ready. I have notes upon notes upon notes, but I've watched so much. Sometimes I need a quick reminder before I talk about it. So it's my biggest fear. I don't know how people do it. I don't know how they go up there and BS it, because I would start sweating and freaking out and heart palpitations and all of that.
Yeah, no, I get it. All right, let's hashtag let Perk cook. That's where we're at. I'm here for it. Let Perk cook on draft night. It'd be great. Okay. Just do it like Barkley does. Like we don't pretend that Charles Barkley like knows these guys at the end of rosters. There's a whole segment on TNT called Who He Play For. Charles Barkley is by far the best person on TV doing basketball coverage. He's incredible. We need to lean more into that. Like that's what we can do here.
I think it was
not gonna get the guys that like know stuff. Lean more into that side of it.
I think it was Wilbon who they showed a highlight of the Pistons, and I think he said something about good young players. He named Cade Cunningham, and then he just stopped. It was like that was it. And I'm like, you know what? Maybe Wilbon's smarter than me, because that may be the only player he needed to name and know. So
all right, let's do this. Let's talk about rookies. We want to start with Victor Wembanyama. This isn't to say that like we think Vic is the rookie of the year. Maybe we'll start here. You mentioned to start the show that you think that it's closing. The gap is closing between Victor and Chet. I honestly like kind of don't think it is.
Okay.
I still think it's Chet like in a pretty clear, solid like landslide. I think Victor has been much more effective for reasons we'll talk about here in a minute, but I think Chet continues to get better as the season goes as well. Chet's last 16 games, averaged 19.3 points, 6.8 rebounds, 2.8 assists, 2.8 blocks, shooting 59.7, 43.5, 73.1. Victor's last 16 games, I believe it's 19.7, 10.9, 3.9, but on 47, 32, 77 shooting splits. And Victor's been amazing. And, for that, we're going to talk about this more and more, but I think what Chet's doing, like contributing, is the second best player on like the second best team in the West or whatever. Like it's just so clearly Chet to me.
Yeah, I think what's going to hold Vic back is the efficiency, which you just outlined. And then at the end of the day, Chet is contributing to extremely high level winning basketball for a team who is going to finish top 3 in the West, maybe first in the West. Like who knows what these guys are going to do. So I guess I think I would still have Chet. I guess I just felt like when we talked last, I was very 100% it's Chet. I feel like Wemby at least closed the gap. And for you, I understand anybody who says it's still not a conversation. Yeah. I just think Wemby's still really good. I also just wonder in general what the narratives are going to be. Like I'm really intrigued to see what this final vote ends up being based on at the end of the year, like just based on the winning, the efficiency. But all the numbers I'll give in this episode, Sam, are going to be from December 1st till now. I just wanted to kind of see, especially because of some guys we're going to talk about. Yeah. Wemby's first in points, field goal attempts, free throw attempts, rebounds by over 3 a game, blocks per game. He's third in 3-point attempts. He's been really good, and only 6th in minutes per game. That triple-double against the Pistons, I realize it's the Pistons, I get it, but was done in like the second fewest minutes of a triple-double since the 50s or something like that. So he's putting up really good numbers on not like Jaime, I think, is leading rookies in minutes since December 1st. So not first in minutes. He does get a ton of usage. And then he's also really good defensively, which I know you want to dive into.
Yeah, and that's where I want to start. I want to kind of talk about Vic to begin this episode, because the reason I used the last 16 games for Vic and Chet is because 16 games ago is when the San Antonio Spurs removed Zach Collins from the starting lineup and started using Victor Wembanyama as the starting center on their team. Collins has started, I think, 3 of those games, like in that 16 game mix. He's missed like the last 5 or so due to an injury. But in those last 16 games, I think Vic has been remarkable defensively. He has over 50% of his overall minutes are now at playing the center position, point blank, like throughout the course of the season entirely. The Spurs have a 118.5 defensive rating in total over the course of those 16 games. And that's not terribly different from what it is over the course of the full season. In Vic's minutes, particularly with him playing center, they have a 112.6 defensive rating, which is like pretty like normal and solid and good. And like, if you were looking at that league wide, 112.6 would actually be the 7th best defensive rating league wide right now. Victor has been really, really excellent on defense. And the easiest way to explain it is just he's around the rim more. Like, he is able to be around the basket more often, which allows him to be more effective as a rim protector. Early in the season, it felt like, I don't want to say he was chasing necessarily, but it just felt like he was a little bit more often out on the perimeter and away from the action, because teams would find ways to kind of go away from him consistently. Now, with the way that the Spurs are operating with him at the center position, he's involved in a decent amount of primary actions as the screen defender, and he is oftentimes the consistent primary weak side rim protector around the rim when those situations come up. So I think Victor has been fantastic on defense to this point. If you look at EPM, which in my opinion is the best all-in-one ranking number that you will find publicly available, he is a plus 3.2 defensively right now, which is just like a totally bonkers number for a rookie. Chet, I think, is even a little bit lower than that now. I think Chet's at like plus 2.5. Victor is like completely breaking worlds defensively. It's just that the team around him is like not good defensively at all.
Yeah, I mean, I think the way he alters the trajectory of shots, you can just tell that guys shoot the ball differently when he's around. And I don't even know that I think he still could be more active with his length and a little better positionally and those type of things if I wanted to nitpick. But just from their most recent game, Jalen Duren has this patented reverse pivot into a layup that he scores on most of the time to his right hand, and he misses just because Wemby is there to contest it. The first possession he went out in both halves, the Pistons immediately got layups at the rim. And it's just because, like, I like Don Barlow. I think he's done some intriguing things, but he's not Victor Wembanyama at the win. Like, people turn down shots because he's there. And then one thing I made, like, his size and coverage and ball screens, it just has to keep his team out of rotations as much as somebody else. Just the passes he can take away, the ground he can cover, the low man. Like, I just imagine that guy doesn't feel like he has to come as far. It gives his other teammate a little bit longer to get around and navigate the ball screen. He just helps everybody else on the floor. So you're talking about, maybe his teammates aren't great defensively. Well, they'd probably look even worse if it wasn't Victor behind them, slowing things down, contesting things, discouraging things, and making up for some of their mistakes.
Yeah, it's crazy. Just like the amount of ground, like we talk on the show about ground coverage all the time, right? Ground coverage, big piece of modern NBA defense and being able to stop opposing teams because of the way that spacing is proliferated and shooting is proliferated. There's just more ground on an NBA court to cover defensively than ever before. Victor is like the antidote to that because of how big, how long he is. And that's, I think, why San Antonio early in the season, in addition to wanting to reduce the wear and tear on his body, probably thought, hey, we can have him be like the weak side roamer defensively and just like wreck worlds, kind of like how Jaren Jackson does defensively for the Memphis Grizzlies. But in reality, I think Victor is so big and so long and has such good timing and is so fluid, like as a mover, that you just want him in the middle of the action constantly. Like, you don't want him away from the action. You want him able to contest the primary action. every
Well,
single
and the
time.
thing is, he just looks more comfortable. So again, like I understand kind of what Pop and the Spurs were thinking, but at the end of the day, and I don't know this, I don't have any intel. He looked uncomfortable playing as that roamer, not knowing, okay, how close do I need to be in the corner? How much can I help off? Having to close out and recover, those type of things. And that's just natural for players. Some guys are more comfortable in situations offensively and defensively. To me, he looks much more comfortable in this role of just defending the primary action, usually a ball screen. And you're right with his recovery ability. There was a game he doubled on the left mid post and then pass out one more pass. He recovers all the way to the right corner and gets a block because not only does he have the length, but he is able to move. He's able to flip his hips, cover ground, run. All of those things added together allows him to cover like almost corner to corner.
Yeah. It's just really hard to avoid him is kind of the thing
Yes.
now. Like it's harder to avoid him in the action, which is the critical piece of it for the San Antonio Spurs here on defense. Yeah, I love everything I've seen from Vic on defense. Offensively, what has been kind of your impression of where Vic has succeeded, struggled, anything like that?
Yeah, I mean, obviously the efficiency still has to come, right? Like he's taking a lot of threes. There was one game I watched where I think the first 5 or 6 were catch and shoot threes. And I'm like, man, I'd like to see him get a little bit more inside the 3-point line. He's 29% from the 3-point line right now on 5 attempts. I just would, let me ask you this. Coming in, I thought the mid post isolation, 15, 17 feet, catch, square up. I thought that's where I wanted to see the ball go to him when you're like, when they want to force the ball to him, when they're saying like Wemby is getting a touch on this possession. Again, it was the Pistons game. I get it. He's playing against Dern, who's not that good defensively. He had 2 or 3, and he did different things. He faced up, went middle one time, played through contact and finish. The next time he faced up, went baseline with his left hand. I think he ended up getting fouled. I think he can face up and shoot. He could, a step back and shoot over if he needed. I kind of like them getting him the ball there. The other thing, especially from that game that I think people took notice of, Vic can pass, man. Like he has
Yeah.
good passing instincts. Sometimes he gets a little carried away. Sometimes there's some turnovers, but he sees things and has good feel. And we talked about this months ago. He's just at a level, literally, like physically at a level where he can see angles and get to angles that other people just literally cannot.
That's absolutely right. I think that's a huge piece of the passing in terms of the offense in general. I agree with you. I would love to see him in those like mid post areas, 15, 17 feet, something like that. I think it's just kind of hard for him to get there now. Like the biggest thing that does stand out is the lack of lower body strength. Every time I
100%.
watch him,
Yes.
he just gets moved by guys,
Yes.
and that's okay. Like he is still 19 years old. He's still so young. The lower body strength will improve as he continues to grow and mature in age. It's just going to take a minute, I think. Like it's just going to take him a minute to figure everything out on that side of the court. Once that happens, I think that it's going to be exceptionally hard to stop him from getting to that area. I remember, I think it was LaMarcus Aldridge who was on, I think it might have been All the Smoke. I think it was All the Smoke. And they asked him about Victor because, he's a former San Antonio Spurs great, everything like that. And what Aldridge said, which shouldn't come as a surprise to anybody that's ever seen LaMarcus Aldridge play basketball before, was he just needs to develop like one move and then find a counter off of that one move, right? Like as soon as you find the counter off of that one move, you're unstoppable. So in LaMarcus's case, it was, the mid post fadeaway. He could hit that mid post fadeaway with a high release point anytime he wanted. Victor can do that. Victor has the similar high release point, has the fluidity to get to that shot whenever he wants. I totally agree. I just think he doesn't have the strength to establish himself in that position. I pulled a clip while we were talking. This is actually like my favorite clip that I've seen from the Spurs and from Vic over the course of the last little while. Came from the Cavs game they played. I think it was last week, maybe early this week. It just kind of shows everything that we're talking about here in terms of the defense, right? Like here, just look at this. Like he's immediately cutting off this drive. Like it's nothing, right? He's on Jared Allen, and Jared Allen is a non-shooter. Anytime a team employs a non-shooter where he can just stick in the paint, the help is there. And it's just like, well, okay, that's cut off. going to have to
Well,
kick
and
out now.
Strus doesn't, not only does he not look to shoot it, Sam, he doesn't even look to throw the lob to Jarrett Allen in the dunker spot because Wemby can get to that as well.
That's right. That's a huge piece of it as well. And then the second drive here, you're going to see heavy closeout from Vassell because, NBA closeouts, a lot of them are going to be flybys because of how good shooters are. And again, another example of great help. I think that this is actually like a look at the lob this time, right? Like I think he actually took a second, saw if the lob was there and realized, hey, we've got the help man here. And then we've got Vic over the top. So like I have to throw this incredibly high. It's probably not going to work that way. And then you just have to totally reset the offense. There's 6 seconds left on the shot clock. You're taking a contested 3. Vic's getting the rebound. We're going down the other way. And now you're just driving. Vic's trailing here. And now this is a great example of what you're talking about. This is exactly where you were saying that you want Vic to get the ball.
Yes.
In this area here, right? And I mean, they're just going to empty it out. And this is what we're talking about. This is an unstoppable shot for Vic if he can just knock this down consistently. He takes like a little turnaround, 14-footer, let's call it, against Jarrett Allen, makes it. And now, again, because he's playing center on this possession, he's in the primary action. Jarrett Allen is here. They're going to run, a little, it's almost like a veer screen kind of thing for Strus to come through and do a double drag. It's actually going to be a handoff, I guess, here, where they're going to try and throw the entry pass into Allen at the top of the key to run like a double drag handoff kind of thing. And Vic is just like, nope, that's not going to happen either. That's not going to happen. We're going to finish right at the rim and just, it's absurd. Like the guy's completely absurd. And look, Jarrett Allen played really well in this game. I want to be clear. Like he was not a problem. It's just that these are the kind of things that Victor Wembanyama can do that change the trajectory of basketball in a real way. And I think that this clip particularly is kind of the ideal everything for Vic, help defense in the primary action on the defensive end, knocking down exactly what Bryce was just talking about in terms of that like mid-range 14-footer, and then getting a steal, getting out in transition, starting early offense. It kind of combined every single thing that we've talked about so far. And I thought it was just like the perfect little thing to talk about here.
Because earlier in the season, and I didn't pay attention to the personnel exactly, but like they put him like on Okoro or something like, hey, you go guard Okoro, who usually hangs out in the corner. And then on the first drive by Strus, he would have been helping the helper, and Strus probably would have attacked Zach Collins or Don Barlow or thrown the lob to Jarrett Allen. And then he would have been having to close out to Okoro if Strus did pass it out. And then he would have been standing in the corner when that pass and follow at the top of the key, the final clip, was happening, instead of jumping that passing lane with the insane wingspan and all of that. So to your point, it just puts him more in the action. What are you going to do? You're going to put Jarrett Allen in the corner? Well, yeah, now he can be an off-ball roamer, but he doesn't have to worry about closing out or doing anything. So the other teams will have to figure out, what are we going to do with the guy he's guarding to keep him out of the action? And I think they're going to have to get creative with it.
I think that's right. Okay. Bryce, let's move on and talk about Chet now.
Okay.
Chet just continues to do every single thing well on a basketball court. That's the reality of the situation with Chet Holmgren. He is so solid and steady and consistent, in addition to just being absolutely threatening and menacing and relentless on the court every single time you see him. Mentioned the last 16 games of Chet. I'll mention them again here. 19.3 points, 6.8 rebounds, 2.8 assists, 2.8 blocks, 59.7% from the field, 43.5% from three. Just an absurd player that has completely changed the trajectory in a lot of ways of the Oklahoma City, in addition to Shai Gilgeous-Alexander's leap. Jalen Williams' leap, by the way, over the last 6-7 games or whatever, he has been awesome in that stretch. This Thunder team is, again, we've talked about it all year. They're my favorite team to watch in the league. I find myself watching just probably 75% of their games because they're so good.
Yeah, when I go through the schedule, usually like the next morning, I'll look through the results and try to pick out close games or games where everybody was healthy and played. And I just find excuses to watch Thunder game. I'm like, oh,
I
I
know.
don't know if I've watched that other team in a while. I better watch that one because it's fun to watch the Thunder. I have a question and then a follow-up question. Did you think that Chet's offensive game was this good?
I thought it was this good in a complementary sense,
Okay.
which is kind of the role he's playing. Like he's not taking a crazy number of shots. Like I bought him as a 40% 3-point shooter.
Okay.
I bought him as a guy who can make quick passing reads and like make decisions, right? What I didn't buy probably were some of the like he throws up like mid-post fadeaways from time to time. Some of the shot creation stuff that he's showcased, I probably did not buy immediately coming into the league, but I did think he would be can grab and go on the break, can create transition that way, can pass out of the break, can knock down shots as a trailer 3-point shooter, spot up 3-point shooter, like kind of that stuff. I thought he'd be pretty effective at that early on. Yeah.
Did you think it would happen? So you thought it would happen this quick? Like you're not surprised that he's doing this soon?
I'm surprised that the shot creation has translated as well as it has early. Not to say he's some like primary shot creator for Oklahoma City. He's not. I didn't think that like much of the ball handling stuff, like in half court situations, would translate as well as it has. But, and this is the other thing, comparing Chet's situation to Vic's situation, Oklahoma City has built their entire scheme, their entire situation around having driving lanes and having space and having like the ability to operate within those driving lanes. San Antonio, like often they do not have like great driving lanes, right? Not to say that Vic is as tight of a ball handler as Chet is, I think, but I did not expect Chet to be able to find those driving lanes without turning the ball over all that easily. But because Oklahoma City is so well spaced and because he's a little bit ahead of where I thought he was in that regard, he has been effective. For instance, as Brian says in the comments here, getting to the spin move. Like that spin move is really hard to stop for Chet every time he wants to get to it.
Yeah, it is. I did put in my notes recently. I'm interested to see if teams start playing him to that. I feel like I was watching a game recently and like you could see the off-ball defender maybe had read the scouting report, watched some film, and played him to it, which, like you said, find your primary move. And then when teams start to take it away, then find the counter to that. But it's absolutely really good. The efficiency numbers just everywhere you look. And so I looked at field goal percentage by distance. 0 to 3 feet, 76%. 3 to 10 feet, 63%. 10 to 16 feet, 48%. The only place he's not really that good is 16 feet to the 3-point line, under 30%, and then over 40% from three. Like it's incredible. And then we just talked about Wemby's defense. I think every time we talk about Chet, I bring this up. And the more I watch other players, it stands out even more and more. And I know I'm sorry I always reference Pistons people, but like I watch James Wiseman play with verticality and get folded in half all the time when he gets the contact because he just doesn't have that core strength or whatever it is to hold up. Chet, as slight as he is, Sam, it's amazing how he has practical strength on a basketball floor. Practical strength, where when he plays with verticality, he does not get bent at the waist. He takes that contact, he holds it solid. People try to challenge him all the time, and they're learning over and over and over. That's not always a really good decision.
No, you can. And like, look, I have a clip from later where we see him challenge where it doesn't go super well for Chet, but he is so relentless and so like his motor runs. He does not give a fuck if he gets dunked on.
I love it.
Does not care. Like he is going to come back the next play and just say, nope, I'm good. I'm going to come back for more. Like there's no reason for me to be concerned about this in any way, shape, or form. I'm going to go for it. Like plus like the things that I really liked about Chet coming in were the defensive anticipation, the positioning, just the incredible wherewithal to be in the right spot at the right time, and also to make like these crazy scramble rotations, right? I feel like he's even like a little bit less ahead of where I thought he was there so far, and that's going to come. Like he is going to bring that at some point. He is genuinely, I think he was the best teenager I've ever evaluated in terms of like scramble rotations, anticipatory rotations, like coming down from the free throw line to like protect the rim from the weak side, like things like that. Like I feel like that's the place where he's even like a very small level behind, and he's not quite there yet.
Yeah, I think the attitude and the mentality is one of those things that I don't think we can talk about enough. And I heard it in the draft process. It's come to fruition. You can see it on the floor. His confidence at the end of the games. He's hit big shots, and it's real. Like some players, you talk about him not caring about getting dunked on. You know, I've talked to players before. You know, where you watch film with them and like they miss a dunk, maybe they get hung or something, and you can tell that it demoralized them. They were kind of embarrassed, and understandably so. It's if anybody's ever missed a dunk in the game, it's somewhat embarrassing, or you get dunked on or whatever.
Yeah.
And I try to remind those guys, no. It's a mentality thing. This is a mentality thing. You should have tried to dunk that. The mentality was right. And you don't think for a second that it was the wrong decision or be embarrassed or whatever. You go back the next game or the next try or whatever, and you put it on somebody's head. Your mentality cannot change for a second. And I feel like that's true with Chet. I feel like he has it. And quite honestly, the more I'm around players, get a chance to talk to him a little bit here and there, you realize even more so how important that is, especially like I tell people all the time, I'd rather have an arrogant NBA player than one that lacked confidence, because that is a tough league with a lot of really confident players.
So I'm glad you brought up the confidence thing, because like the clip I wanted to show of Chet just kind of showcases that. Like there's a confidence in terms of fearlessness and like willingness to just like go to it every single time, like knowing that I'm just going to be fine. Like I'm competitive, I'm going to be good, like whatever. Right. There's also like there's a confidence that comes with being just willing to try shit on the basketball court. Right. So like, this is kind of the prime example I wanted to grab. Like he's going to up and under Zubats, throw it off the glass to himself and finish. And then he's going to flex on Zubats. Like it's what he does. Like it's the pure unbridled confidence of Chet Holmgren. Like he's going to pick this ball up thinking that he's going to have like a mid-range jumper, and instead reacts to the like up fake, getting Zubats in the air, and just like, nope, I'm just going to throw this shit off the glass and I'm going to go get it. Like,
remember when we thought this shit was cool when people did it in all-star games, Sam? And now we're getting it every single, hold on, built like Bryce. You never even seen my upper body. You guys have no idea. Sorry, I got distracted by the comments over here. But we used to think throwing it off the backboard was cool in the all-star game. Now, like literally once a week, somebody's doing it. Vic did it the other night as well. I love this game. I love that the game has progressed where it's okay to do things like this. You know, like I've talked about it before, the way we do matchups. My son tonight was asking me, he goes, Dad, in general, do taller players shoot less threes than smaller players? And I said, that used to be true, buddy, but it's starting to change. He goes, well, I still think it's that way. And I said, it is that way, but it's truly changing. The game has changed with, we don't put dudes in boxes anymore. We don't, boys or girls at any level, we don't put them in boxes anymore. It's been so good for the game.
It's 100% right. I mean, just it's awesome. Like stop putting these guys in creativity boxes, right?
Yes.
Like, look at the elbows. Like the elbows are like pointing out. They're so bony, right? Like look at his elbows.
He's rocking the baby while he's flexing at the same time. Like he's grown the beard out. Like it's beautiful.
All the guys on the team love it. Like look at Jalen Williams there. Oh man, it's the best. Like it truly is the best seeing guys like Chet Holmgren come into the league and just have no fear at all. And I think that is above anything else, the theme of what this episode is about. Kind of the rookies that have come in and been fearless and been willing to be creative and take chances and be confident. They're the ones that have had success this year. And the next guy that we want to talk about is Jaime Jaquez. And Jaquez is the primary example of this, right? Like This is a dude that has no fear on the court whatsoever. He knows exactly what he's doing every single time. He plays with pure aggression, pure everything in terms of just getting up and down the court, attacking the rim, all of it. Like, this dude has been so ready to go from day one in the NBA that it's phenomenal. I've loved watching him. I want to bring up a couple other things from like the pre-draft versus Jaquez now that I think are worth noting. But Jaquez's last 24 games, he's averaging 16 and a half points, 4 rebounds, 3 assists, shooting 51.6% from the field, 38.2% from three, 83.3% from the line. Has entered the starting lineup over the course of the last 10 games there. Look, the shooting has been a little bit worse. He's shooting 29% from 3 since he entered the starting lineup. That was always like kind of the big question with Jaquez. I always thought that like he would make open ones, like consistently make open ones at like a 35% clip or so. And that's, look, end of the day, that's what he's shooting from 3 right now. He's shooting 35%. But at UCLA, it was hit or miss because he ended up having to take a lot of tough ones for sure. That's why the percentages were lower than what his actual shooting ability is, in my opinion. But also, and this is a big thing for Jaquez too, he dealt with a lot of ankle injuries at UCLA that I think sapped the percentages a little bit. And additionally, I think probably hindered him a little bit from being able to like access his athleticism when trying to improve in the off season. Even like he finally got like a clear off season where there was nothing wrong, anything like that. I think he looks bouncier and like quicker and more athletic than the guy that we saw at UCLA. And I would bet you that a big piece of that is he finally got like a clear off season where he was ready to go and was able to like really get after it and really improve, because like he looks quicker. He looks more like, the decisiveness was always there, but like the decisiveness stands out more because of how quick he is and how he's able to just make decisions and go.
Yeah, there's a lot more explosiveness, athleticism, however you want to say it, in his game than I think what people gave him credit for, especially during the NBA draft process. Since December 1st, rookies first in minutes. This guy, I don't know why I was going to say kid, is playing almost 35 minutes a game. He's third in points. That's first in minutes for rookies, fifth in field goal attempts, second in free throw attempts. That was something that really stood out to me. When you talk about confidence, aggressiveness, those type of things, getting to the free throw line is something that really stands out to me. If you're a rookie that is confident to go into the lane, draw contact, keep going, because you're probably not going to get every call, right? You're a rookie in the NBA. You're not getting the best whistle. So you're going to go in there, take contact, not get the call, and then come back the next possession. Jaquez strikes me as a guy that he's not going to let one time going there and failing or not getting the call deter him from going again. Plus, he has all the moves. He's so creative, fundamentally sound. You know, we know the mid-post game. And I've talked about this before with him. It's amazing to me that shout out Spoelstra, man, as a coach. He pinpoints what this kid does well, what this guy does well, and runs isolations through him in the mid-post. They run their offense through Jaime Jaquez after timeouts, all of those things. But the thing is, he can also play off the ball. He'll make a good cut along the baseline. It's just a very well-rounded game. And if the shot's falling, I mean, forget about it. He can do about anything you want and play multiple roles on the offensive end.
Yeah, he is a really, really impressive dude because of, it's all footwork is what it comes down to,
Yes,
right? Like
yes.
the ability to consistently break down defenders with your feet, with your polish as a ball handler. I think his polish as a ball handler has gone way underrated this year. Like he has shake. Like that's a thing that probably went a little bit underrated about him throughout the pre-draft process. And again, like you're talking to a person who has been talking about Jaime Jaquez for freaking 3 or 4 years now. Like I love the guy and I've loved the guy like since his second year at UCLA. But like people looked at him and saw like this 6'7" guy with a 6'9" wingspan who like, you know, is this big bruising forward. Cause like UCLA would post him up occasionally, but in his senior year at UCLA, like there was real like shoulder shake. Like there was real ability to like separate from his man and be able to find different ways into moves and things like that. Like he had actual ability that I think went like way underrated and undervalued.
Yeah, I mean, somebody said in the chat, Jaquez is a hooper. Like we've talked about this on previous. I think whenever we did the first mock that we did, we found ourselves saying, and you kind of started is, I think this guy can just play basketball, and I kind of fell into that as well in terms of sometimes the argument is this guy can just play ball. He plays ball the right way. You can tell he moves to the right spots. He has a good feel. He has a good awareness, a good understanding. Jaquez is one. It would be interesting if he ended up somewhere else, right? Like, I think he would succeed. Do you think he'd be succeeding at this level where he's, I think, undoubtedly the third best rookie here at the 1st of January? Because everybody mocked him to Miami. Everybody thought he was a great fit for Miami. He's a Heat culture guy, all of those things. Are there some context that you'd be like, nah, I don't know if it'd be going as well?
People mocked him to Miami because there was good intel that Miami liked him, to be clear. Sure. Like, it's not an accident that like we all felt good that he was going to Miami. Yeah. By the way, like if for some reason that was wrong and it's come out publicly, and I said this on draft night, I think as well. I think he was going 18 to Golden State as well. So if he didn't go 17, he was going 18, which is why like I felt phenomenal about like where he was going to end up. I think he'd look great in any offense that allows guys like this to play with freedom and creativity. Yeah. Like we're going to talk about Pods next, right? I think Pods is next on our list. No, Lively's next. So we're going to talk about Pods momentarily, but Pods is like a perfect fit within what Golden State wants to run because they let him play with freedom, with creativity. He's naturally just really smart about the way he operates. I think Jaquez would look great there. I think Pods would look great in Miami. Like I think that there are a number of situations, like someone brings up Oklahoma City.
Yeah.
I think Oklahoma City, he'd look great there. I think if you put Jaquez in like Atlanta, for instance, where everything is built around like Trae Young, you
ball
know,
screen stuff. Yep.
In the half court and things like that, I think he'd look a little bit worse. I think that he would not get as much freedom to do what makes him impressive, especially next to somebody like Jalen Johnson, because like it might be a little bit difficult to play both of those guys together and get the most out of them. I think they would look really good, but like I think that their skill sets as drivers in some ways overlap a little bit as like kind of combo-y forwards. I think if you put them in Orlando where the spacing is just worse, and it might be a little bit harder for him to find those like kind of opportunities to be able to get into those creases and cracks using the footwork and like the shoulder shakes and things like that he's capable of. I don't know. But like, it doesn't matter. He's in Miami. Who cares? Like that's the reality. Like he's in Miami. So
yeah, I was just curious because like the next guy we're about to talk about as well, I feel like he has ended up in a situation that's been really good for him. So I'm just curious, like how would they fit somewhere else? How would they look in a different context? Before we move on, because I don't have a lot of notes about his defense, which usually when that's the case, it means he hasn't stood out in a great way, but he hasn't necessarily stood out in a bad way either. Do you have any overwhelming thoughts on his defense in like just in general?
I think he's been like a little bit heavy-footed, if I'm being honest, but he's so smart and like works his balls off and like he's flying around the court that it's fine within their scheme. Like they have Bam back there, they have Jimmy, obviously, like Kyle Lowry is as smart as he is, like taking charges and like constantly being in the right position. Like Haywood Highsmith is like a really good defender, in my opinion. They just have a lot of guys that I think make up for the foot speed potential problem that Jaquez has. But I don't think it, like, again, like he's in the right place for him. And defensively, I think within their scheme, he has been totally fine. And I have no issues or concerns.
Yeah, I think I agree with that.
Yeah. Okay. Next up is Dereck Lively. And Lively's game is so simple and basic, and I love it. And it's perfect. He's just a dude that rim runs and slip screens and screens sometimes even. And the thing I want to call out about Dereck Lively above all that has stood out. And we'll talk about the defense momentarily, but it's actually his hands. He catches. Luka is a guy that is so creative that like he throws passes from such awkward and interesting angles that they're not always like 100% on target, right? He's just reading and reacting, and he processes the game so quickly that he's like, I'm going to throw this ball here, right? And I need my guy to like be on the same page with me and be simpatico and know that like I can trust him to catch the ball. Lively makes some really impressive, like one-handed above the head catches, like away from the body catches with his hands that I think are really, really important within Dallas's scheme and structure around Luka Doncic.
Yeah, and I don't think it should go underappreciated that he is able to have the body control to make those catches, the coordination, all of those things. I watched some bigs in the NBA draft process, in the NBA, all of that stuff. I'm like, why aren't his teammates throwing him more lobs? What is going on in practice that they don't trust him? Has he dropped too many? Have they not, like you said, being on the same page? For Lively to come in as a rookie and develop and build that chemistry and trust with Luka Doncic is really, really impressive. This isn't a team that's at the bottom of the conference. This is a team that's very good, trying to, compete and go deep in the playoffs. And he got the trust of the team's franchise player, one of the top 5 players in the NBA right away. That's really impressive from him. In 8th in rookies in minutes per game, 12th in points. But as you say, he's first, efficiency, first in field goal percentage, and he rebounds the ball, second in rebounds, second in offensive rebounds, only behind Chet and Wemby in blocks. What about his passing? Because I talked to my guy, Richard Stamen at Mavs Draft on Twitter, who watches a bunch of Mavs game. He really was raving about his passing to me, especially kind of his all around short roll game, but especially his passing.
Yeah, to me, it's more about like the all around short roll game for Lively. Like he does make some interesting passes from time to time. And that was always a skill set that I bought a little bit more than like the shooting. Like people thought that maybe Lively can come in and shoot. I always thought it was going to be more of like, if you get some of the passing ability, that would be really nice. I think he's really comfortable handling the ball. I think he's comfortable. The thing about the way Dallas's scheme operates is they set screens so high that often there is like an ocean of space for Lively to be able to roll into. So he doesn't have to be as crowded as some other bigs are. Like for instance, you watch the Pistons all the time.
Yeah.
When Jalen Duren like short rolls or something like that, like you and I both think like Jalen Duren has some latent passing ability.
Agreed.
Right.
Yes.
But I don't think he gets to show it on the Pistons because oftentimes defenses are collapsed. He's crowded kind of in a paint, like, and it's hard for him to make those reads. I think when Lively is operating in screens, there's just an ocean of space for him, and he's able to stop and survey momentarily kind of, and think things through a little bit more, and then make a decision based off of that.
Yeah.
And by that, I mean, like, look, all of this is happening still like within a second and a half, right? Like we're not sitting here saying that like he's not doing this like quickly. He's absolutely doing it quickly, but even that extra time, I think, gives you a chance to read and react a little bit better.
And there's still something to be said for at times having to catch it at, at the top of the key and maybe put it on the deck for 1 or 2 dribbles and then react to how the defense either steps to you or doesn't step to you or rotates and those type of things. But yeah, I mean, being able to make those passing reads, he is 55% from 3 to 10 feet. Those are 31% of his attempts. So 1/3 of his attempts aren't right at the rim. Obviously, it's the dunks, the lobs, the play finishing. I get it. But being able to do stuff in that in-between game is huge. So I'm with you. I think being kind of the short roll efficient, whether it's passing or finishing with a little floater, whatever it needs to be. I always love seeing that from these bigs. Yeah, you want that rim gravity, right? The lob threat. But then being able to counter that, especially with a guy like Luka, who teams may go double as soon as he crosses half court, allowing Lively to be the guy who catches and makes the play allows you to keep Kyrie on the wing, Tim Hardaway Jr. in the corner, Grant Williams in the corner, Josh Green, whoever it is. You can keep those guys to be the absolute play finisher and Lively to catch it in the middle. And if he's able to get it to the right spot, that's super valuable.
Yep, that's dead on. I believe I have a clip here of Lively kind of operating in the mid post area here. So, or not mid post, I'm sorry, out of a short roll.
Yeah, exactly.
So this is against the Thunder. I forget how long ago this is, but he kind of just sets this like little ghost, and you can see because they have shooters all over the court, and because of how high they set these ghost actions and screens, and because of how much gravity Luka has as a playmaker and how you try and take the ball out of Luka's hands, just look at all that space, right? Like this is the perfect amount of space to be able to operate in. And then you see Lively, like he can put the ball on the ground once and then just throw down on Chet, right? Like these are the things that make Lively as impressive as he is offensively to me. It's the ability to catch the ball from a wide variety of angles away from the body. It's the ability to put the ball on the deck. It's the leaping ability to be sure, like he can absolutely go up and get it. And then it's also just his overall comfort level, like in being able to stop and think, load off of 2 feet, and then I'm just going to throw down, right?
And he changes the angle of the finish too, Sam. Like if you watch, a lot of guys would just go straight up here and try to put it like over the top of Chet. He actually cocks it back over kind of his left shoulder and then is able to change the angle to go around Chet a little bit. I know it sounds super simple, especially if you're listening to this and not watching on YouTube, but that's like not everybody has that nuance with their finishing. You see a lot of really athletic guys who aren't finishing well at the rim because they don't have that.
Yeah, no, I think it's dead on. I think it's really, really dead on. Just a super impressive athlete that is capable of a lot of fluid things on the court. Like people thought of him as like an explosive leaper, but I think that like his versatility in ball screens in defense got underrated coming into the draft because he is so fluid and quick. I think that his just overall intelligence on the court kind of gets underrated as well. Like he's comfortable out there from day one. Like he knows what he's doing. Everything I've seen from Lively has been super impressive defensively. Like I just want to call out like his ability around the basket transforms Dallas defensively in such a substantial way. He has been really, really good as a rim protector defensively for them, especially for a rookie coming in. These are exactly the things that we thought Dereck Lively would be entering the NBA. I thought it would take him a little bit longer. If you look like throughout his career, like for instance at Duke last year, it took him like half of a season. I thought that right now is when we'd start to see Lively like heating up, right? And getting going a little bit more. The fact that he was able to do it from game one, where he was phenomenal against Phoenix, if I remember correctly, he is very clearly to me the fourth best rookie to this point.
Yeah, he's been really impressive. Again, Richard, I asked like, what are strengths, weaknesses, and his impact? One of the weaknesses, he did put foul trouble. That's a rookie big man thing. That's not crazy. But the impact, he talked about just the second line defense, and then the roster. Like, shout out the Mavericks front office, organization, whoever, for pinpointing him, going and getting him, and being ready to play him as a rookie. And then Brett Bluma, shout out Wichita. Stay warm, my friend, as this cold front's coming through pretty heavy this weekend.
Yep. Oh man. That is it's very cold. Haven't talked to Bryce about that earlier in the day. Okay. Next thing that we want to talk about are the Golden State Warriors and their rookies, Pods and Trayce Jackson-Davis. We'll probably start to zoom through these a little bit quicker now, except for maybe one guy as we go through. Pods, we talked a little bit about during the Jaquez section. What stands out with Pods? Two things. First, basketball IQ is through the roof, and he is a perfect fit within this Warriors scheme. His ability to dribble, pass, shoot, they desperately need it on the court, especially now without Chris Paul. They need somebody beyond Stephen Curry who is comfortable putting the ball on the deck, who's comfortable making quick decisions, and who can be a floor spacer, who can attack heavy closeouts, who can run ball screens occasionally, second side actions more than anything, things like that. Like his ability just to run off the ball, understand space, rapidly make decisions with the ball, make these like quick read passes and reversals, and he'll cut back door and then like he'll find the man in the corner quickly. It's just the basketball intelligence from like the from day one that stands out, and it's a perfect fit within like Golden State's like read and react offense. And then the second piece of it's like he just plays hard, like the energy and aggression, and he's just like constantly at 100, and it's just a huge benefit for them.
Yeah, I think I've talked about this before. For a long stretch, Sam, I didn't watch games with the broadcast on. I wouldn't listen to the volume. And then I realized like I'm missing out on little nuggets here and there where the broadcast talks about what a coach said, what teammates said, even random facts and stats. And when I was watching the Warriors, every broadcast, whether it was the home or the way, would talk about how the Warriors players talked about Pod's energy and how contagious it was and how they needed it. And this is something that team really needs right now, especially where it's very positive energy. And he just makes all those type of plays. He's going to step in and take a charge if he needs to, and those type of things. And then you said he makes threes right now. He's shooting over 40%, almost 41% on over 3 a game, shooting 52% on corner threes right now. And then I think you hit it spot on. Just the feel and the ability to play at the pace and make the decisions you need to be able to make playing with this Warriors offense. He's a really nice fit there. There's some foot speed stuff. There's some defensive things, especially on the ball, but you're not going to question how hard he works. And, he's even finished well. He's finished 71%, 0 to 3 feet. Not a ton of attempts down there, but if he can find kind of the finesse way to finish in the lane, that's just another little added aspect to it. Maybe get the floater going. He's a skilled player that plays really, really hard.
Yeah, he's had a couple of those like weird little like hook shots that he takes from time to time. Like there have been some moments where I think he is really kind of flashed as he's working around it as a finisher. You know what I'm saying?
Sure.
Like he figures out how to make it work even in spite of the lack of measurements. I kind of wanted to grab a video of Pods real quick, just to like kind of showcase exactly what I'm talking about here in terms of the movement within Golden State's offense, right? So like this sets up as they're going to entry this to Pods, and it's just going to be like a DHO, like double drag again. We kind of saw that earlier with the Cavs trying to run that against Vic, but he's going to throw this DHO back to Steph. He's going to make contact on the screen here, which is huge, right? Like that's a pretty solid screen. It's going to be pitched cross court here, then a DHO to Pods. Pods is going to reverse it. Then he's going to come back around for the dribble handoff into a 3 in the corner. Like it's the energy just in terms of he stays moving. Yeah. Like he stays moving constantly. He's a threat. Like offensively, I have no qualms about him right now. I think he's been super impactful on that end. Defensively, I have some like none of my concerns pre-draft that admittedly I fully over-indexed on. Like I was just wrong on Pods. I had him as a second rounder. This guy's not a second rounder. He is definitely a really capable NBA player that's going to be good. I do have some worries on the defense. Teams do seem to go at him when he's on the court pretty consistently, I think. And it's been a problem from time to time. He takes charges. He plays hard. He's in the right position. Again, the IQ is super high. I'm just going to be interested to see how he kind of holds up in big moments.
At the end of the day, and this is no knock, like this isn't hating, athleticism, size, quickness, length, all of that stuff matters. Now, you can overcome some of it to an extent with IQ, feel, active and accurate hands, taking charges, toughness, all of those things. I get it. But at the end of the day, sometimes guys are limited. I don't think we're going to talk about Marcus Sasser because we won't have time. I watch dudes just jump over him and shoot uncontested mid-range jumpers. Not because he's not trying, but because he's, barely over 6 foot and small. And it just was an easy shot. So some guys have to find ways to overcome that or just be a little bit of a liability defensively. Real quick on the possession you just shown, I don't want people to undervalue his ability to play from one action to the next, Sam. Like, not everybody does that where he immediately catches this, or when Saric catches it, he immediately sees to follow that and then now says, okay, I don't have what I want. I'm going to throw a live dribble right-hand pass, and then I'm going to continue to follow that right away as well. Like, it's one thing to be in constant motion. It's another to get to the right spots at the right time and play from one action right into the next.
Yeah, and like what he's recognizing here is that Jokic, particularly, is going to stay in the paint. Like
Yes.
he knows that Jokic is going to stay in the paint, which means that Gordon's going to have to like fight way over the top of this screen to contest it. And honestly, Aaron does a great job. Like Aaron's a great defender. He gets there and contests it. It's just that Pods is a great shooter.
Yeah, I
And
mean,
that's
it's
what
better to
makes
do
him
that than try
useful.
to attack Gordon off the dribble, right? So like he gets a switch with Aaron Gordon. Oh, I'm not going to attack that. Oh, Jokic is on the block. Perfect. And shout out, Trayce Jackson-Davis for catching, and he immediately flows into the action as well.
That's
He
right.
catches, takes a couple dribbles up, giving Pods a little bit of space into the corner so he can get the shot off. And that's why this isn't easy to execute. I think we talk about how much fun it is to watch the Thunder offense, dribble pass, shoot, dribble pass. It's not easy though. You have to work off of each other and you have to react to what your teammate does.
Yeah, so Pods has not been very good in the last 2 games. Like the Warriors are struggling. They lost to Toronto. They got obliterated by the Pelicans, right? The 14 games before those last 2, though, he'd been averaging 12 points, 6 rebounds, 4.4 assists, 49% from the field, 43% from 3. Like 1.6 steals per game. Like he'd just been all over the place and it'd been so valuable. Again, like the defense is the thing that is going to continue to pop for him, but they're a mess defensively in general right now. So like, I don't know how much to place on him on that. And like, by the way, like we should talk about Trayce Jackson-Davis. I have liked a lot of what you just said about Trayce in terms of like, has that innate understanding that the Warriors look for from their bigs, like from Looney and from Draymond, of screening, rescreening, dribble handoff, getting your body in the way of guys on dribble handoffs, movement into short roll areas, passing ability. Like he can finish at times. I think it's been a real struggle with him on the court defensively. Like there's just not, he's just not big enough, I think,
Yes,
to
correct.
really be able to play as a big,
I think it was
as a
the
center at least.
Yeah, I think it was the Celtics game where he was playing in crunch time, and I know they ended up winning that game, but that was the one where the Celtics got like 4 wide open threes at the end of the game because the Warriors just simply couldn't pull down a defensive rebound. And yeah, again, at the end of the day, like some guys have some flaws, like they're not as good a rebounder. He's a decent offensive rebounder. He brings
Yeah,
energy. I think he's been first in offensive rebounds of rookie since December 1st, but defensive rebounds, not quite as much. He's 4th overall. So that tells you kind of the gap between his offensive and defensive rebounding. Again, they're getting quality minutes from a late second round pick, right? So I don't want to sit here and like crap on Trayce Jackson-Davis for what he's brought where he was selected. Like shout out
yeah,
to the Warriors for getting him there. Shout out for him for producing the way he has. The flaw is the Warriors having to count on Trayce Jackson-Davis in crunch
yes,
time against the Boston Celtics. That's not a Trayce
yeah.
Jackson-Davis issue. That's a Golden State Warriors issue.
I think Trayce looks like a legit backup center in the NBA,
Agreed.
which is huge.
Agreed.
He over his last 12 games, he's averaging 12 points, 7.7 rebounds, 1.8 assists, 1.2 blocks, shooting 74% from the field. He does a great job of just doing what's asked of him offensively, I think. It's an enormous piece of the puzzle for the Warriors as they've survived, I think is the easiest way to put this. Time without Draymond, even if they haven't actually survived, they've like floundered a lot of the time that they've played there. Okay. Next up, we wanted to do Cason Wallace. Let's save Cason for the end because I don't have like crazy takes on Cason.
I don't have a ton either.
Yeah, let's do what the people are waiting for. Let's do Amen and Cam Whitmore.
Cool.
Let's talk Amen first because I think Amen is going to be a little bit of a quicker conversation.
Agreed.
Amen is like basically playing, I would say, more on the wing. Like they play him most of his minutes with Aaron Holiday, and they let Amen bring the ball up the court like a decent amount of the time. But in half court settings, it does feel like most of the time Aaron Holiday is the one initiating, and Amen is sitting in the corner trying to find ways to cut baseline, or he is like maybe lifting to the wing and like trying to get like an open 3. The Bulls last night like ended up putting like Andre Drummond on him for stretches of time,
yes,
which was interesting. Concerning, in my opinion, that he just didn't like straight beat Andre to the rim, kind of. That feels like something he should be able to do, is just like consistently get past those dudes. But rookie, like it's not something worth like over indexing on. I think he's been active and energetic on defense. He had stretches last night where I thought he did an okay job on DeMar DeRozan. DeMar caught him a couple of times just with like up fakes and like caught his over aggression. But I think Amen like generally works hard on the defensive end, and that leads to transition opportunities where he has been really good this year. Like if he gets a chance to like go and has numbers, like it's going to be really, really hard to stop him. I think that's where a lot of his main offensive ability has been. Yeah, we'll see what Amen looks like moving forward. I think he's just like, this is something that we talked about pre-draft privately, and like I talked about certainly publicly. And I can like pull up the draft guide while we're talking here, but like I thought he was a loose ball handler, and I thought that it would take him a minute. He's a creative ball handler, but he is a loose ball handler that is going to take a minute.
I'll say I don't want to be the guys like, oh, they're twins, so we're saying the same things about him. But a lot of the things you just said about Amin are the same things going on with Ausar in Detroit right now, where he's struggling to finish at the rim, even when he does get there in non-dunk attempts. The handle has been loose. Defensively, it's active, but it's not always perfect. One thing I put as well, being guarded by Drummond, is he was playing so far off, Sam. It was hard for Amin to even be a good passer. Like he couldn't even find angles in passing lanes because Drummond was so far off. Those weren't even there. And I do think Amin can pass. And so those things were taken away. I did like some of the off-ball cuts. Defensively, DeRozan got him on the shot fake the first time in the first half, and then Amin stayed down in the second half when DeRozan tried to do the same thing. So that was good. He got beat off the bounce a couple times. He goes rogue off the ball at times. But like in general, I think he's playing hard. We know the athleticism. It's going to take some time.
Yeah. So like what I wrote in the draft guide is like, these issues exist when he's taking pull-ups. The worry here is that a lacking jumper would allow defenses to go under ball screens all the time and dare him to shoot while trying to cut off his driving angles and bog down the offense when he doesn't have the ball. Really would struggle to not be a liability in terms of defenders sagging off entirely from him into the paint to clutter things from teammates. And arguably the biggest problem is that he doesn't have a way to beat defenses with any sort of in-between game. Russell Westbrook could at least stop and pop on balance for a mid-range jumper. Thompson has not displayed any of that. And then additionally, I talked a decent amount about like handle can get loose. He can over dribble a bit, dominates the ball, like completely drives transition play. Half court can be a bit muted and has some ball control turnovers. So like all of that is pretty much what we've seen. And look, these guys are coming up from OTE. It's going to be a minute.
Yep.
I always thought these guys were going to be like a project just because it was going to take some time. And that looks like what it's going to be.
Yeah, I agree 100%.
Let's talk about the main attraction here in Houston.
Let's do it.
Cam Whitmore. Cam Whitmore, in his last 8 games, he's averaging 12 points in 16.8 minutes, 3.4 rebounds, 1.3 steals. I think he has like 3 assists in that time, which is, classic Whitmore. But at the same token, like I don't think he's played selfishly. I think he has tried to attack, but once it's not there, he resets the offense and like moves the ball out. He's shooting 55, 46, 82 in that 8-game stretch. The shot looks pure as hell. We saw it in the G League this year. It looked pure as hell there. I've always kind of bought him as a shooter off the like pull-up ability. Like the big thing that stands out though is just the power mixed with the balance to me. Cam Whitmore being able to put his shoulder into you and then Euro step around you like it's nobody's business. This dude is a special athlete. This is why I had him in the top 3 of the class. He is a special athlete in terms of his ability to create. I think he has been a real dude to this point. Everything I've seen on offense, we'll talk about the defense momentarily, but like on offense, he is just such a freight train that it's so hard to stop.
Yeah, I mean, I really liked the shot. I believed in it. I bought into it. He can do it off the catch. I thought he was going to be able to do that. I think he made a really tough mid-range going to his right, I think it was last night, where he pulled up and knocked it down. And yeah, I'm glad you brought up the passing. I know all of the assist numbers. I get it. I understand it. Assists don't tell the whole story. He's not going to be a creator. That's not going to be his game. You're not putting Cam Whitmore in your lineup for him to create a ton of open shots. You're putting him in your lineup to go get buckets and be explosive, be a physical presence, get downhill. But he isn't selfish, and I think he can be a ball mover. He doesn't create, but he keeps the ball moving. Last night, he had a beautiful, beautiful one more pass, second possession of overtime. So he was playing in crunch time in that game into overtime against the Bulls. They ended up losing, but a beautiful one more to Fred VanVleet in the corner. And Fred just simply missed a wide open catch and shoot three from the corner. It happens. And that's why assists don't always. If Fred hits that shot, maybe people are talking about, man, look at this pass from Cam Whitmore. But because Fred missed it, it kind of went unnoticed. So I think he's fine in terms of keeping the ball moving, being unselfish. I think the biggest thing is, he's going to have to be able to drive, attract defense, and then make the right decisions out of that. But he's athletic. He can shoot it. Defensively, he had some played in the dunker spot even. He's athletic enough. He was even, playing on the baseline and doing those things. Offensive rebounds, all of that. Defensively, there was some bad ones. I actually think he can guard on the ball when he's engaged. I think the biggest worry with Cam Whitmore is how many back doors does he give up? How many times does he not check out on the weak side? Those type of things.
So El Tamar over on Twitter, shout out to him. He grabbed a lot of possessions of Cam Whitmore last night on the ball against DeMar DeRozan. Yeah. And what stands out is he's just strong.
Yes.
He's just physically strong. He can cut these dudes off. Look at this one. He is driving DeMar DeRozan out to the 3-point line on a curl. He is cutting off DeMar DeRozan. Or no, that's Ayo Dosunmu. But he's cutting off these dudes baseline and making it so that if they get there and he gets back, he is just going to put a wall in front of you. This is a switch, and that's Pat Williams. Pat Williams is strong. That dude is physical. He puts his shoulder into him. Yeah.
Look, he makes it. Okay. I'll make sure we see the context there for everybody. The Bulls are up 4 with 30 seconds on that possession, and Whitmore plays good enough on-ball defense to make DeMar DeRozan get rid of it. Not even get a shot up from his spot in the mid-range. Now, DeRozan got him a couple times with the up fake and all of that.
Yep.
He played good enough to make DeMar DeRozan get rid of the ball in crunch time from his spot. I think that speaks. I almost think he's a guy, Sam, you actually put on the second best perimeter player on the other team where he can just kind of lock in and say, hey, Cam, don't worry a whole lot about some of this other stuff. You just guard that guy tonight. Just really lock in and guard that guy and then go get us 20 on the offensive end.
That's it. No, I'm with you. I think you can absolutely have him do that. I think he is a total stud. Everything I've seen from him makes me think that this is going to be a very, very, very real, dude quality player. I would still have him, I think, in the top 3 of this draft class if you made me point it out, or you made me pick, I guess. This is the offensive clip I wanted to grab. I'm sorry, but it comes against the Pistons, Bryce. This is one where looks like Killian Hayes is on him. Killian Hayes sinks a little bit too deep in, puts the ball between his legs super quick, loves to do it, loves to try and get to the step back. But then if you over pursue the shot, he's just such a freight train as a downhill force that as soon as he sees this lane, as soon as Killian Hayes flies by, any defender flies by on the shot, and you have to fly by on the shot because he's a real shooter. Anytime somebody does it, he's going. And as soon as he goes, he's going to throw down at the basket because that dude is not just a good leaper, he is an elite leaper.
Well, here's the other thing. It's not just, I think whenever we talk about leaping ability, sometimes people think about height, right? for me, what I've tried to watch for more and more is how quickly does he get off the ground and how, like, how explosive, like he's explosive off the ground right there. It's not about sheer height, like how high he jumps. It's how quickly he got to the rim. And Mr. Ray brings up a good point. He made the extra pass before the cut. So he didn't force us. They're up by 30 with 4 minutes to go. For anybody listening on audio right now, the Rockets are up by 30 with 4 minutes to go. He played in at the end of the game. He could have just shot it, right? Said, you know what? We're up by 30. I'll just shoot this step back. He made the right play. And that was something people really had questions about with Cam Whitmore. And so far, what I've seen in his NBA action, I haven't watched the G League action. He has made the right play more often than not.
Yeah, he is a monster, I think, on offense. On defense, he guards on the ball. Off the ball, it is the biggest adventure in the world right now. It is such an adventure for him, trying to figure out where exactly he has to be, where the help rotations are, everything like that. It's real wild watching him try and figure it out on the fly on defense in the NBA. He's young, like you hope it'll come, right? Doesn't matter. And look, I'll say this, he's not perfect with the passing. There are times where he'll pass up easy reversals, but it's way better than what people gave him credit for. And again, this is why I had him in the top 3. I think he's not a selfish guy. I thought there was positive defensive on ball attributes, and I thought he was just an absolute dude as an athlete. To me, I've seen a couple people in the comments bring up Jaylen Brown. I've always thought that that was the best comparison for Cam Whitmore was Jaylen Brown. Somebody said more athletic Jaylen Brown. He's not that. He's a different kind of athlete. Jaylen is especially when he came in out of Cal, he was wildly explosive and had real force mixed with verticality. I think Jaylen gets up higher. I think that Cam plays with more force and physicality.
After all of that happened, I just found myself going, even if Cam only has a 7-year NBA career because of his knees or whatever the intel was or the reports were, isn't that still worth more than going 20? If you're going to get 7 years, that's 2 contracts of a dude that's this good. Isn't it still worth it?
Yeah. And look, is Cam staying healthy going to be as big of a concern as it was made out on draft night from YouTube user? Look, maybe, but nobody I talked to was concerned about it being a short-term thing. We'll find out 5, 6, 7. Honestly, most people I talked to thought it was 8 to 10 years down the road, but maybe there'd be some diminishment over the course of the time, getting to that point. But no, I think that, I think it was look, I talked about it. I don't need to continue to belabor it. I talked about it throughout the process. I thought it was way overblown. I thought everything was way overblown in terms of his mentality, whatever people,
all the demeanor stuff,
and demeanor, doesn't smile, that stuff was so overblown. I thought he's a kid that, from what I know, I have not talked to Cam Whitmore. But what I was told is that he is a kid that if you show him respect, he will give respect back to you, and he will he's not a bad kid. He's totally fine kid. I don't know why people way over indexed on it. Way over indexed on it. And it wasn't just people in the public sphere. Sometimes it's just people in the public sphere that think this stuff. And in this case, it was people in NBA front offices that thought it. Someone asked, Cam Whitmore better than Jalen Green. I thought that coming into the year. Again, I had Cam at 3 on my draft board. Yes, to me, that's always been the case, but
that was bad for me as a Pistons guy, Sam, because I had preached on my Pistons pod for weeks that Cam Whitmore should be the pick at number 5, assuming that we were assuming the 4 that went in the top 4 was what happened. And me and Amari both were Cam Whitmore. We were a Cam Whitmore Pistons pod. So not only did they not take Cam Whitmore, when Cam Whitmore went 20, I look like an idiot to Pistons fans. And so I'm not wishing ill or whatever. I want everybody to succeed, but seeing him be good makes me feel a little bit validated even talking about him at number 5.
Yeah, and Tavarius in the comments asks, Rockets have to trade some of these young guys.
We've talked about Jae'Sean Tate, right?
Like I think Tate makes sense as a potential trade chip. Look, like I mentioned on the last podcast, like, look, we need to be honest about like Jalen Green in terms of he is coming up on a potential extension eligible summer, and he's not taking the steps forward. So his situation gets complicated moving forward for the Rockets here. My opinion, not anything I know from any intel, right? My opinion is that you want to be early on these decisions more often than late. Jalen Green gets expensive potentially in a few years or in 18 months. I would want to get value for him before then personally. I don't know what the Rockets will do with Jalen Green. We will see. That remains to be seen. Okay. Bryce, let's kind of run through. Let's do Brandon Miller real quick as well. Is a slightly more substantial one. Brandon Miller has been quite good throughout the course of the season. That's my take. Look, he's made 38% of his threes, averaging 14.4 points. He looks every bit the part of a solid NBA wing. He's hit like a little bit of a wall over the course of the last few games. He kind of got like nicked up. He missed a game there. I can't remember if it was like an ankle injury or something like that, where it's just like a little minor thing where he missed one game. And since he's been back, he hasn't been quite as good. And I wonder, like, maybe that took him out of rhythm or something like that. There was a real stretch there where he looked awesome, basically from like mid-November to mid-December, where he averaged 17 points and shot 43, 44, 84. What I will say though is that a lot of Miller's limitations athletically do continue to pop for me, just in terms of getting to the rim, pressuring the rim, being able to take advantage of mismatches, even getting to the rim.
Yes.
And even like finishing, like it has been not quite as good as what you would like to see.
Yeah, only 16% of his shots come from the rim to 3 feet. I would like to see him. I don't know if it's a mid-post game or something. The Bulls game, he was getting guarded by Kobe White. There was the Pelicans game. It seemed like Alvarado was ending up matched up on him quite a bit, and he wasn't able to take advantage of those in any sort of way other than, yeah, you can just shoot over them at the 3-point line, which isn't a bad option for somebody that shoots the ball as well as he does. But I just found myself going, I would like to see him be able to take this matchup and go play in the mid post and take advantage of them there. And he's got to get stronger. We all know that. Somebody asked about his defense. I don't know that it's been good. What I find interesting is they're asking him to guard other teams' best players. In that Bulls game, he was the one matched up with DeMar DeRozan. He held up okay. DeRozan is going to school young players, in the mid posts and in the mid range. But I like seeing that from him in terms of just taking those matchups. He had one ball screen where he ended up getting called for an offensive foul, but he kind of went in, tried to jail and snake and cross the face of the defensive player with a jump stop into a floater. Ended up getting called for an offensive foul. But I think he's, like you talked about earlier, just testing his, what he can do. I was on a pod recently with Dave Love, and he talked about exploring the sandbox. So you don't want to stay just in the middle of the sandbox. You want to explore the sandbox a little bit. I'd like to see Brandon do that a little bit more with his all-around offensive game, just in terms of what can I do, what can I not do, and then he can figure out what he needs to work on in the offseason a little bit more.
Yeah, and so much of it is strength, right?
Yes,
like how
agreed.
Strong can his lower body get? Brandon is a kid. Like, look, he's 21 years old already. He's not old. Like, let's be clear about that. But he's a little bit older than the normal one and done in terms of entering the NBA at a certain age. And his lower body needs quite a bit of work. So what level that can get to, I think will play the critical role in what his upside ends up being. Has every chance to be an all-star, like long term, I think. If the lower body gets to that point, can absolutely be like an all-star caliber player, which is, why I had him in that tier. Like I ranked him ahead of Amen Thompson, and I quite liked Brandon Miller pre-draft. I liked Scoot more, but I like Brandon and think Brandon is a real potential all-star long term.
Yeah, I think he's a guy that there's nothing I've seen that takes away from a good-sized wing who has a chance to really score the ball. I think I really believe
Yep.
in that from 2 levels. I think he, from the 3-point
Yeah,
line and in the mid-range,
definitely.
especially if he get out of mid-post. Does the rim scoring ever come around? I don't know, but you can still score a lot of points in this league scoring from those 2 levels.
Right. And to me, like that's the difference between him and like Paul George. Right.
Agreed.
Paul
1,000%.
George was just like a nuclear athlete coming out of Fresno State, right? Like he was crazy, crazy bouncy. Brandon is not that. So we will see where that goes at the end of the day.
Yep.
He has a chance to add strength and like be able to keep guys in jail, be able to take advantage of his length and high release point on his pull up and everything like that. But like I don't know that I see like Paul George upside. I think I see like, next year down, like Chris Middleton, like, multi-time all-star, like could be like a really, 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 really great, player in the league.
I like it.
Next up, let's just talk Scoot now.
Okay.
Scoot is in the middle of like a disaster game where the Thunder beat the final score. It looks like the Thunder beat the Blazers 139-77. Scoot went 4 for 21 from the field, including 1 for 9 from 3, 6 rebounds, 2 assists, 3 turnovers, was a minus 56 in the minutes that he was on the court tonight.
Woo.
That's a aggressive amount of bad from the Blazers tonight. Yeah, look, like Scoot, to me, it's all for young guards. I just like to see, can they get to their spots? Can they figure out like how to read the court and operate? The final product is just nowhere near there for Scoot right now. Finishing, I thought it was getting better, but then like it's kind of reverted the last like few games. The shooting is obviously not there from the 3-point line. I like that he's confident enough to take them, but like he's just not not there yet as a shooter by NBA standards. And I think he's been able to get where he wants on the court, like out of ball screens. Like that's the critical thing. Like I think he has been able to get into his areas where he's able to succeed. And if you believe that he will eventually improve as a shooter and finisher, because he's a great athlete and because he's, 19 years old right now, then there's, look, there's reason to be lower on him, but like, again, young guards struggle in the NBA. This happens, and he's being asked to like run the show on a terrible basketball team. So like, I wouldn't expect it to look great, I guess.
Yeah, I mean, I think I believe in his mid-range right now, 10 to 16 feet, 40%, 16 feet to the 3-point line, 30%. I think where he's really struggled is a little closer to the rim, actually, where he's just 51% from the rim to 3, 29%, 3 feet to 10 feet. I just don't know that he's adjusted to NBA level shot blockers and rim protectors and just figuring out the nuance and the finesse of that, right? He's and you took the words right out of my notes. He's got to his spots. He can. I always, going back to the first time I watched him play when he was a 17-year-old, before the year before he came out, it wasn't the explosiveness, the body, all of that. I love the nuance that he played with. Even as a 17-year-old playing with the Ignite, the way he would operate a ball screen and snake it and gel it and, all of those things, manipulate. Now he has to be able to figure out how to finish when he's not just able to use his explosiveness, his body, and those type of things. I think he has the wingspan, all of those things to get there. It's just going to take a little bit of time to do so. He's still averaging 5 assists, a little over 3 turnovers. So, he does make some crazy mistakes at times, but you can still see some of the passing. Defensively, I think it has a ways to go. Somebody asked in the chat, ball screen defense. He's got to figure out how to navigate, not die on
Yeah.
screens, those type of things. He's got a ways to go defensively still.
Well, like, and they also play this like weird scheme where like they have him like press way up on dudes and
Yep.
like play like real like high on the court and like open up more space on the court. Like it feels I don't really understand what they're trying to accomplish with that totally, to be honest. I don't think it puts him in a great position. I don't think he's been good defensively, let me be clear, but like I'd be interested to see what it looks like in a different scheme where he's not being asked to like pressure 40 feet from the rim sometimes. In the 13 games before these last three, including this fucking travesty of a game tonight in Oklahoma City, in those previous 13 games, Scoot had been averaging 15.3 points, 6 assists versus only 3 turnovers. Good number there. Shooting 39.6% from the field, but 41.2% from three and 83% from the line. He had really actually started to like turn a corner
Yes.
up until these last few games where it's been kind of reverting back and been a bit of a struggle. Part of it is that the shot started to fall. Like
yes.
if the shot is falling, it does kind of open things up for him in a real way. If he makes shots, like he's going to be a good player. That's so simplistic to say that and like kind of like a douchey thing to say, but like I think if he as soon as he shoots, it's going to open up the court for him in a real way.
Listen, I know people get really frustrated with the term it's a make or miss league or it's a make or miss game or, if they sometimes it is true though, Sam. Like sometimes it really comes down to I was
Yeah.
talking to the high school coach here, at the high school I work at, and he was talking, we use huddle assists. And so they got their huddle assist stuff back from a game they lost. And he's like, we beat them in every category. You know what, two we didn't beat them in? Effective field goal percentage. And I'm like, yeah, like I looked at the stats too. And sometimes the other team makes shots and sometimes you don't. And that's the biggest factor. For Scoot, making threes is going to force harder closeouts. It's not going to allow players to go under ball screens, which is going to be huge. I always thought that was the biggest thing. He needs to be able to force players and teams to play over the top of ball screens, because if he can force that, then it's over. I have all the belief that he can then attack a drop coverage and mid-range pull-up or snake it or throw the lob, manipulate the defense, whatever he needs to do. If teams simply go under the ball screen and he can't shoot it, or he chooses not to shoot it, well, now they're in good position to take away a drive. The mid-range becomes further away, those type of things. So sometimes it just is as simple as that, especially early in a career.
Someone brought up like these G League prospects from Jalen Green to Henderson have been a bit underwhelming. I think we truly just need to like stop pretending that the G League is a better development environment than college basketball.
Yeah, we've had this conversation, right? Like it's none of these guys have proven to come in more NBA ready.
No, like truly, like I don't think any of them has come in and like made a real impact at this point.
I think a lot of the stuff from Scoot defensively too was like, I think you watched some of the stuff last year and he looked a little bit checked out as well. Like just the
100%.
motor and stuff in general wasn't. And some people really, and I don't say people like fairly, some people really, really, knocked him and critiqued him for that. So,
yep. Ausar Thompson and Marcus Sasser, like let's just kind of buzz through some of these. Ausar was playing really well when we did the first edition of this. He has, basically like been removed from the rotation, not removed, but like playing substantially fewer minutes. Let's go with over the course of the last, I don't know. What do you want to say? 2 weeks, Bryce? Something like that?
I mean, since December 1st, Sam, he's 15th amongst rookies in minutes per game. 15th amongst rookies. So it's substantial.
Since the day after Christmas, he's averaging 14 minutes per game, which is just like so small. And look, like I think I was a little lower on Ausar and his play early in the season than some were. And I think that in large part it was because of the offense. It was a struggle for the Pistons anytime he was out there. So yeah, it was tough.
Yeah. I mean, the concerning thing is, even if you math it out to match the minutes per game, his rebounding isn't as active. His steals and blocks are down, like all of those things, like the things that he was doing really well. And
Yeah.
he isn't being as impactful. I know it's harder to in the role he's now being asked, but Sam, he's at 14% from three. He can't shoot. And the misses are bad, like
They're
really
bad.
bad. Air balls, long, short, all of those things. The only shot I'm super confident outside of a dunk for Ausar, he actually is pretty decent dribbling in and then kind of fading away from 8 to 12 feet. That shot actually looks halfway decent. Everything else, not so much. The handle's loose. It's been a tough go, and doesn't make it any better that he plays with a team that's not very good at all. And so some teams could maybe use this guy that just brings energy, going to block a shot, get out in transition, all of those things. This team needs a guy that can score the ball and space the floor a little bit.
It goes past that too, though. Like in his last 10 games, he's shooting 28% from the field.
Yeah.
Like it's been a struggle since he's been like kind of downshifted into this like more limited role. I like the defensive energy. Like you're right, it's definitely decreased a little bit, but like he is a guy that can make a difference, in terms of his defensive energy. It's just he's a significant project on offense, which is what I thought coming in. Like it's going to take quite a bit of time for him on offense. Okay. Marcus Sasser, any thoughts?
Real quick. Like, I mean, I'm
for your
interested.
Pistons homies.
Yeah. I don't know how much more they're going to watch the rest of the season. They play more on the ball than I anticipated. I think that's my biggest takeaway. Did you see point guard Marcus Sasser or a little bit more play off a jumbo creator floor spacer market? He does have true wiggle. Like he has creativity.
Oh, yeah.
I'm just surprised. I didn't see that as much. Like he has the most unassisted 3-point makes on the team, I think, maybe outside of Cade or something like that. Like,
but that's always been his game, though. Like he's always been like pull up 3-point weapon. Like he's always been a great shooter off the catch too. I always thought it would be kind of a mix. Like I thought he'd be like a backup point guard and then like comes in and plays with the stars, like when he has it rolling kind of thing, and plays.
So maybe maybe he's only doing the first thing you said, and we're not seeing him not get a chance to do the other part. I was like, man, this is an interesting guy to play off of Cade, right? Like Sasser can take on defensively that twitchy, more quickie, opposing team's point guard, but on offense, you play with Cade with the ball in his hands. And like, for example, Sasser shooting 64% on corner threes, but that's only 12% of his 3-point attempts. So he's shooting an insane percentage, but not a very high percentage of his attempts. So I just thought I would see more of it. It seems like it's almost predominantly, almost exclusively on the ball. I think the second part, you bring up a good point. Let him play with the good guys, the good players a little bit more, and see if he can provide that floor spacing.
Let's go to Cason Wallace next.
Okay.
Cason Wallace just continues to be able to play basketball at a high level. He is averaging 7 points, 2 rebounds, 1.5 assists on 52, 43, 84. He comes in, he defends, he plays hard. I feel like he has been the same guy. Like part of the reason, like I kind of wanted to save Cason for later. Cason would probably be like my 5th or 6th best rookie so far this season, something in that ballpark. But he just like continues to do the same solid, steady things. So while it's effective, it also is like a little bit boring to talk about. And like, it's probably unfair to Cason, but we've talked a decent amount about him, like on the podcast, for a player that's like a bench guy who's coming in and playing defense and knocking down the open 3 and just like making the right decision constantly.
I feel so much better because I felt like, man, I don't have a lot on Cason to say beyond what we've already said. And so this makes me feel better that we're kind of on the same wavelength there, because it was going to be, he is consistent. He knocks down shots. He fills his role effectively. He is thriving in it. I think my biggest thing, or maybe my biggest question, and I don't know that I have the answer, is what Big Mike asked is, do you think Cason has upside? Like, how does this scale up with Cason Wallace if the Thunder need it to? Maybe, they're in such a position they may never need anything more than what we're seeing, where he's playing 22 minutes a night. Another thing real quick, we mentioned this talking about Jared McCain. Cason has a little more versatility defensively because he's so darn strong. Like, he is so strong.
Way more. Yeah.
Yeah. And so, I mean, not just compared to McCain, but just in general, than maybe what he would get credit for, just because he's so strong, and that allows him to hold up even better defensively.
That's absolutely right. Look, his role to me long-term is being able to knock down open catch and shoot threes, maybe occasionally like run some offense as like a second side creator. You probably don't want him to be the primary point out there, but he can definitely be the secondary ball handler out there. I don't know, like, I think I saw someone bring up like Dereck White. Like, I think that's a good name, honestly. Like, it'll look different than what Dereck is, but in terms of super high IQ, plays defense at a high level. I'll say this. I don't know if Cason will get to Dereck White, like first team all defense guard level. But offensively, like, I think Cason can get to 38 to 40 from three. I think that he can attack closeouts at a high level. I don't think he's going to like create offense, because like I don't know if he has like the shiftiness to, but he does have like a pretty real like mid-range pull-up game that could be effective long term. I don't mind the Cason Wallace upside, or the Dereck White upside that like somebody brought up. I'm like, I love Dereck White. I've been awesome Dereck White fan. I had him, I think, in the lottery the year he was drafted. Don't quote me on that. Might have been like 16 or so, 17, but like loved Dereck White from like the moment he got to Colorado from his NAIA school, or D3, whatever he did. I'm not like Dereck White should be an all-star guy this year, which has seemingly been a conversation. Like, to me, like Trae Young is like has been awesome, and like putting Dereck White in the all-star game, putting Dereck White in the all-star game over Trae Young feels a tad far to me, but
I think sometimes we undervalue being the focal point of an NBA offense and the driving force of everything that NBA offense. And I realize the Hawks aren't very good. I get it. There's still a lot of effort and talent and skill. I think everybody, you could put a lot of people. I don't think a lot of people could do what Trae Young is doing and the number he's putting up on a night in, night out basis.
No, Trae has been absolutely unconscious. He, in his last 23 games, he's averaging 30 points and 11 assists while shooting 46, 39, 83. He's averaging those numbers.
He's very good at basketball.
Yeah, he is. Trae is unbelievable. Like, if Dereck White makes the all-star game over Trae Young, like, and that's like legitimately, like, if you actually look, if you go through the guards in the East and you're like, okay, like, we have to have this guy, like, that's kind of the conversation. Like, it's, you throw Dereck White in the mix with Trae Young, and it's like, well, okay, I love Dereck White. Dereck White's a top 40 guy in the league, but like, Trae's a dude. Trae's a real dude. Okay. Yeah. Let's go. I mean, like, Andre Jackson Jr. Bilal Coulibaly. Do you have any thoughts? You said that you have not watched a lot of Wizards basketball recently.
Yeah, so I feel bad. I think as I looked through my notes today, they were the team I have watched the least, and the Pistons play them soon, so I didn't dive into the film a whole lot. I think we know what the defense is with his instincts and all that. My guy, Matt Moderno from the Believe in Wizards podcast, he wanted to ask about this. So I'm going to throw this to you, Sam. Wes Unseld Jr. on Bilal's offensive usage recently said, it's the flow of the game. We don't run a ton of action for Bilal to begin with. I'm not worried about his offense. Matt was interested, like, on a team like this with Bilal, a lottery pick, all of those things. Does that bother you at all? Do you? We talked about this going all the way back to, Kuzma's going to get a lot of usage. Jordan Poole's going to get a lot of usage. Do you want to see this with Bilal in terms of, he's 14th since December 1st with rookies points per game, 13th in field goal attempts, 16th in 3-point attempts. not a ton of usage, just over 6.5
Well,
field goal
and
attempts on
the
the
big
year.
thing is he plays 27 minutes per game as well.
Yes.
Like
Yes.
it's a mix. Um, to be honest, no, because I don't think Bilal is ready for it. Like
Okay.
just being transparent. Like I think Bilal thrives in transition right now. I think that he is a capable cutter. Like there are moments where like you see him like get the ball on the wing where the defense is in rotation and he can drive and attack the basket and like finish at the rim. Uh, I don't like I'm for getting him reps. I just think you can do that like over the last 2 months of the year. Like you can do like the calendar will turn to like mid-March. There will be a month left in the season
Post All-Star break.
and you can do it post All-Star break. Yeah.
Yep.
Like and like on some level too, like we can talk about like the priorities for teams, right?
Sure.
Just handing dudes reps and things like that, like it creates a problem within an organization. Like it definitely creates a real issue. It needs to be a meritocracy, at least on some level. If you want to run out occasional lineups where Bilal gets like a few second side opportunities, maybe gets like a couple of primary reps per game, that's one thing. I think that's fine. And frankly, like I feel like they don't do that often, at least now. I'm trying to like think back if I've seen any, and there isn't one that pops off the top of my head. And look, like again, like I'm with you. I've watched, 7 Wizards games this year. Not a crazy amount. Like that team is just not for me, dog. But like, when I watch them, I think he has like real juice as an athlete. I think he has real juice as a defender. On the ball, particularly, I think off ball he is learning and still like makes an impact with his length, particularly like creating transition opportunities and things like that. But like, it's just going to take a minute. And he was always a project. The fact that he can stay on the court right now in an NBA setting and be like fine, I think is a reasonable way to put it, is enough for me at this point.
Yeah, I mean, there's different ways to go through this process, right? Some guys, for whatever reason, maybe you want to force feed them reps. They're ready for that. Maybe their mental makeup and different things like that is put them in these situations, explore the sandbox to greater lengths, and then they'll find their boundaries and learn from them. I don't know this for sure, but maybe Bilal's not that guy. Maybe it's better at his age and kind of his rise and how quickly it happened to say, let's slow play this a little bit and let's not throw all of those things at him. Let's work at it from a different angle. So I'm not around this enough to question it or critique it. I'm really am interested to watch this game upcoming just for Bilal. That's the player on the team I'm most interested to watch. I always enjoy watching or interested to watch Kuzma as well, especially kind of what they end up deciding to do with him. But yeah, I'll be interested to see kind of if this stuff plays out in this game against the Pistons coming up in terms of his usage and attempts and how involved in the offense he is.
Yeah, like I feel like when he takes threes, like he takes wide open threes and he makes them. Like he's hit 39% of his threes so far this year. It's just that like there's a difference between like saying, hey, you got to go take like tough shots and the shots that Bilal takes now. Bilal has proven that he can do this, which is good. And like, seriously, more than what I thought he'd be ready for already, which is a huge, huge benefit for the Wizards at this point. And I think speaks to like, he's going to be able to take on minutes. Like a big thing in the NBA is being able to get minutes, maintain minutes, and play them, right? That way you can actually get the reps that you need to be able to develop without taking too much off the court. The fact that Bilal does not really take anything off the court when he's on the court makes his open ones, defends at a reasonable level. It's going to allow him to get the reps that he needs to potentially fast track his development long term, which is what's important for the Wizards.
Yes. Yeah. I mean, they're in a situation where you have to play the long-term game with it.
Yeah. Okay. Keyonte George was like the last main one I think I had here. Look, I think they look better with him coming off the bench. He's hit or miss. Like he's had like a game against Oklahoma City where he had 30 and I thought he looked quite good. He had a great game against Miami where he had like 21 and, knocked down shots and was super effective. He just has games where like it's really hard to keep him on the court offensively in terms of his efficiency at this point.
Is there any, like, do you have any the jumper looks so pure. It looks so good. He did in college 38% from the field, 34% from three. And right now in the NBA, he's 37% from the field, 33% from three. Do you have any concerns that this is what he's going to be efficiency wise? Like, do you think it, because to me, like, he looks like a more efficient shooter than this, but it's like the numbers haven't necessarily backed it up.
I think from three, no, I don't really have as many concerns. Like, he takes some tough ones now.
Sure. Yeah.
From two and like from finding space into like driving lanes and things like that. Yeah, I have some concerns on him being able to like consistently finish at the rim, pressure the basket, things like that. I think that's like a reasonable worry to have. Defensively, like it's not ideal, but I think that, I'll say this too. Like, I thought that when they put him in the starting lineup after like, what was it, like 10 games or so, I thought that he really helped foster like ball movement for them and like really, really helped them like create like a bit more of a culture of unselfishness on the team in a way that helped. Obviously he, got hurt and now he's back and he's coming off the bench and they've gotten like scalding hot since then. I think they've won like 11 of 15 or something like that. And they've been fantastic. And a big piece of that is like Colin Sexton being fantastic on offense. And then Chris Dunn coming in and like playing super high level defense and like being able to pressure and like be aggressive and make passes and everything like that. So I think that they're probably handling this right with Keyonte. I think Keyonte is fine to come in off the bench and see if he's got it going from three. If he has it going, like, great, he can play a bunch of minutes. If not, then you play him, 15 and 20 or something like that and kind of go from there.
Yeah, I think that's where I'm at as well. I believe that 3-point is, it may never be 40 because like you say, the attempts he's going to take, but he's going to be a good 3-point shooter on high volume. I don't know, maybe the mid-range pull-up really clicks at some point, but I'm worried about the 2-point scoring, I think.
Yeah, the 3-point and the shooting and the passing ability that I think he's shown this year, I think is a strong combination that gives him a base to build from. And there are real efficiency concerns and we'll see where that lands. But I've seen enough to where I get why the Jazz, or at least like the Jazz, I think are like very excited about him. I'd probably be like a little bit of a step lower, but like I get why they would be enthused about him.
I think that's where I'm at as well. Like, I see some people that are super uber excited, and I think I'm still probably where I was before the draft, where, yeah, I think this guy's going to be a good guard, maybe ends up being a third guard on a good team that can really come in and play the role that you outlined. I mean, it should be noted 4.5 assists to 2.1 turnovers. So he has distributed the ball well. And since December 1st, among rookies, third in free throw attempts. So he has been able to find a way to get to the free throw line, which is impressive as well.
So the last thing I want to talk about with rookies, just like, apologies to Andre Jackson, who gives effort and energy and everything. Apologies to Nick Smith, who's played reasonably well the last couple of games. Yeah. Craig Porter Jr. is just so fun. Like, Craig Porter Jr. being like a real dude at this point for the Cavs, who can come in and organize the team and at least be like a competent backup point guard. Like, look, I know he's like kind of been semi out of the rotation the last like 3 or 4 games, but like, I've enjoyed the Craig Porter experience immensely. And I think that like they have something here in a real way with him.
Yeah, I mean, we've talked about this with him and kind of these guys off the bench in general. Sam Merrill coming in, notching shots, and they found guys to help them get through these weeks without Garland and Mobley, where everybody's had to scale up, and then these guys have come in. Porter Jr. obviously even longer than some of these other guys. So yeah, I mean, pressures the rim really well. He's a good rebounder for a guard. Has good pick and roll chemistry with Tristan Thompson. I was talking to Bob Schmidt from Fear the Fro about him, and he was talking about all these things. He just moves the ball, doesn't force things, and yeah, I mean, it seems like he's done a really good job, and he looks like an NBA second unit point guard that maybe that peaks at that because he can't really shoot, but he does a lot of these other things really well.
Yeah, had a 15-game stretch from November 17th through the end of the calendar 2023 year, where he averaged 9.7 points, 3.2 rebounds, 4.5 assists, 50% from the field, 39% from three, 75% from the line, turned it over 1.1 times per game, was playing 21 minutes a night, defends well. Like, those guys are kind of invaluable to have as like bench guys in a real way. The last thing that we have to talk about, Bryce, is something that has happened, or at least been announced while we've been recording.
Okay.
It happened last night in the game against Washington State. Isaiah Collier is going to miss the next 4 to 6 weeks due to a hand injury he suffered last night.
Yeah, I did not see the injury. I watched, I think, till halftime of this game. This will be interesting. I will admit, Collier has been moving down my board, and not that I want to move somebody down my board further because of injury, but this is going to take him, 6 weeks? Puts us beginning of March. I mean, I guess my point is there's not going to be a whole lot more play to change what I've seen. And then if other dudes start playing better, it's like he's the easy guy to keep dropping based off what we've seen. He's a small guard, like those type of things. So this will be interesting for him.
For what it's worth, they're 8-8 now.
Yeah.
They're not going to be like an NCAA tournament team.
They're not even going to make it. So that's out. He may not play again this season.
That's kind of what I'm wondering. If this could be the last we've seen of him, depending on how long this takes. Look, like if it ends up being like 6 weeks until he's like genuinely healthy, like I don't know why he'd come back. Like if it's 4 weeks and he's back like on February 11th or whatever, and February 8th, like whatever it is, great. Like let's see it. Like I hope that that's the case by all means. But if it's more like the 6 week window, which is the longer timeline, I do have some questions. You've kind of brought up some of the stock based things. I definitely have real concerns on him. I have not seen enough. Like if he can play this year again, I would strongly recommend playing again, because what he has done this year has not left the best taste in evaluators' mouths. Like he's averaging 15.4 points, 4.1 assists, 2.6 rebounds, shooting 50.6% from the field. Great number, but 31.3% from three, averaging 4.1 assists versus 3.6 turnovers. Look, he'll go in the first round for sure. Like somewhere, like someone will take him in the first round. I think he would almost certainly go in the top 20, to be honest with you, just given where this draft is. I would be interested beyond that.
That's what I said. Like, just some context for everybody. This is a guy that at one point, nobody's going to be a consensus number one, but there was number one pick conversation, definite top 5 conversation. We're not just talking about falling out of that. I don't even think he's in that. He's not really in that conversation for me. I've finally tiered out my top 9 guys. He's not in the first 2 tiers. I think we're talking about him falling out of the lottery now. If he hasn't already, and I know he has for some people. Yeah.
So Collier, the reason that I had him at number 1, like in my first big board update of the year, in his first 4 games, he averaged 21 points, 3.8 assists, shot 52, 42, 81 from the field, turnovers were like a catastrophe in those games, but like still it has been like substantially worse since then. And there are real things that he's going to have to fix. The other issue is like that those issues have popped in games where they played like real teams. Like in his last 11 games, he's averaging 13.6 on 49, 29, 58, and 4.5 assists versus 3 turnovers. Like, I don't know, man. It hasn't been a hot stretch. I'll do a deeper dive into Collier at some point here, but he is someone that NBA evaluators are unsurprisingly all over the map on. And I would say, frankly, like the number one pick conversation like does not exist around him right now.
Agreed.
It's now like 8 to 20 range, I would say, like something in that ballpark.
That's where I have him right now. I still have him at the top end of that, having not messed with the top of my board recently, but I just can't get the term bully ball out of my mind with him.
Yeah.
And is he going to be able to do that at the NBA level? And then another thing, and I may learn a lesson here as an evaluator. I hate how he complains to officials during the game. He is constantly throwing his hands up and talking to there's one where it costs him a defensive transition because he goes into the lane and he throws it, he's not Luka Doncic, and it drives me crazy when Luka does it. And maybe this shouldn't be a part of my evaluation, but I can't unsee it. And so I have that in my notes multiple times, but truly it's kind of the bully ball stuff offensively. I'm like, do I believe this is going to translate on an NBA floor?
This has been Old Man Bryce Yells at a Cloud segment of the podcast. Yeah, look, like it annoys me, but like it more annoys me in the first instance where you said like he like chose not to get back for a defensive possession.
Yes, correct.
Like that's the shit you can't do.
Agreed.
Like just straight up.
Yes.
Do it. Yeah, that's all I've got. Looking at my board, I have Collier at like I think I have him at 10 right now.
He's at 9 for me.
Yeah. He's been a bit underwhelming since those first 4 games where he looked like the number 1 overall pick.
Yep.
And how you balance those things will be very interesting moving forward. And look, I think that this draft's going to have a lot of movement in the pre-draft process because teams are just going to take the guys that they like that have come in and like have impressed them in some way, shape, or form. So, what's 10 to 20 now could be 5 to 30 or something like that going down the stretch. So we'll see what it looks like. Bryce, tell the people where they can find your work. We are done here. Tell the people what's going on.
Yeah, so at Motor City Hoops on Twitter, obviously here on Game Theory with Sam whenever he has me. If you want to listen to a Pistons pod, the Pistons Pulse, we're actually recording with Keith Smith recently. That'll be a fun one. Always learn something about the cap or free agency, trade deadline, whatever. We're dropping that on Tuesdays, Wednesdays. And yeah, that's it. That's all I got. Appreciate you guys. Hit the like button, subscribe, all of that stuff on podcast platforms, the YouTube channel. I always check I know it's your YouTube channel, but I always check and see that number going up every time I look at the YouTube channel. So excited as you're on. Game Theory is on its way to 10,000 subscribers on YouTube.
It's exciting. It's good. I am, we're in the process of upping the bells and whistles on the YouTube channel a little bit, which is good. So I'm excited to share that with you guys. Excited to, just continue to have a good time on this channel. And obviously like the podcast listeners are great. Like we love you guys. We appreciate it. The podcast, listenership is still drastically larger than the YouTube, like watchership. Viewership is the better word there, Bryce. Why did I just say watchership? Yeah, look, like, we appreciate everybody, but it's always so great just to share some time with you guys and talk through some things. And if you come watch the live stream as we record it, you get to ask questions, which is always really fun. Like I think we actually took quite a few of them today as we went through it. So we appreciate you guys. You guys make us think a little bit more about things. You guys make us like think about things from like a slightly different angle than what we maybe came in expecting. So it's great. Like we have 13 pages of notes, and I don't know that we had in our 13 pages of notes like what's Cason Wallace's upside. So that's fun. Keep it locked here. I will have NBA trade deadline big board Monday. I would guess that Bryce and I don't know, when do the Chiefs play this weekend?
Saturday night. So Sunday is free.
You'll be free Sunday.
Yep.
You'll get to watch me like wallow in sadness as the Bills obliterate the Steelers. So that'll be fun. But we'll be back probably on Sunday. I would guess Bryce and I will record again. I have a vague idea of what I want to do. I kind of want to talk about the Rockets at some point because I find them fascinating. I don't know if we'll do like a theme episode or if we'll just like kind of shoot around the league yet, though. That's it, though. Until next time, we'll talk soon.